Welcome to Black in Willingboro, Life and Liberty. WHYY would like to welcome you, as well as BoroTV. This is a conversation and we would love your input. And so we're going to start by introducing Ms. Daphne Neal, Mr. Kenneth Dean, Ms. Jaslyn Wooden, Mr. Gary Nelson, and coming on will be Mr. Samaj Mccullough. I'll turn it over to Terry McCullum of BoroTV so he can introduce.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for joining us this evening. We're looking forward to having a very engaging conversation regarding being Black in Willingboro. It's something that I'm definitely looking forward to hearing perspectives of different people and what they have to say about it. And as Dr. Dean mentioned, we have Ms. Daphne Neal here. Ms. Neal, how are you?
Fine, thank you, Terry. Nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you so much for joining us. We have Kenneth Dean. How are you, sir?
Fine, thank you.
That's good. That's good. Mr. Gary Nelson, good to see you, sir.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And Ms. Jaslyn Wooden, how are you?
I'm well. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me.
Good evening. I just want to welcome you all to the conversation, and we're looking forward to hearing from you all this evening.
So would you agree with me in saying that Willingboro is a great place to live?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Yes. If you could tell me one good thing, I know this is not any of our questions, but one great thing that you appreciate about Willingboro? Who'd like to start?
I can jump in.
Wait for everyone else. Go ahead, jump in.
I love Willingboro. I find it to be a very peaceful, enjoyable, family-oriented place. When I moved here, I have kids. I'm probably going above and beyond your question, but I had young kids and I thought it was just the ideal and perfect place when I was introduced to Willingboro to be here for raising my family. So I truly enjoy it.
Awesome. Jaslyn.
Sure. I think one thing I've always loved about Willingboro is just the strong sense of cultural pride. I feel like it's a place where Black people just feel a little bit more free and also receive a lot more support growing up and just with like the programming that I experienced in schools and extracurricular that just I don't see that anywhere else. And it's something that I found to be very unique to Willingboro. So no place like it to me.
Okay. Mr. Dean, Dad.
Willingboro is a fantastic place to live. I think it has like a melting pot of all different kinds of personalities, occupations, and age groups, and just a wonderful place to raise your family.
Okay. Mr. Nelson.
I like the way Willingboro is actually designed, the way it's situated. I feel like it's like conveniently located and we have everything we need around us. I like how each park has its own unique identity. So yeah, that was something that really drew me to moving to Willingboro.
Okay. Samaj, the question that we're asking is what's one thing that you like about Willingboro?
Thank you for repeating that for me. Technical difficulties. I like the community of our people. I like the fact that we have a community of people who take pride in ownership, who want to own something, who want to be a part of something, and just as someone just said, the centralization of it, the fact that we're conveniently between New York, Philly, Delaware, we're not far from these places. So that always attracted me about Willingboro.
Okay. Terry, do you want to add to that?
Definitely want to add to that. One of the things that I love the most about Willingboro is that it gives me the opportunity to see how a village works. I've been in some situations here in Willingboro since I've been here, whereas the community came together, whether it was coming together for a Sunday picnic in Mill Creek Park or coming together to help find a lost child. Looking at the camaraderie and the sense of village that you see when you experience what happens in Willingboro when everyone comes together, I think that is a very powerful thing.
Okay. Again, welcome everyone. We are having a conversation, Black in Willingborough, Life and Liberty, sponsored by WHYY and BoroTV. And so we're going to begin with the first question. And in this question, feel free to introduce yourselves, whether it's as an artist, a mother, a father, whatever you want to introduce yourself as, here's the time. The question is, where did you grow up? Or did any of you grow up in white neighborhoods and share an experience? Miss Neal, would you like to begin?
Sure. Thanks for asking the question. I grew up in South America, specifically Guyana, and it was predominantly, predominantly Indians and Blacks. There were a few other races, but that's a predominant ratio of the makeup of the country. And as comparable to here in North America, there is racism even between those two races. So that's everywhere in the world. Just a little nugget there. We experience it everywhere. But I have never lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. So moving here, I felt it's an extension of where I came from, my upbringing. So it was very easy. I felt welcome. I felt at home being here. That's a big difference. Again, my name is Daphne Neal, and I'm a mother. I am a single parent, so to speak. My kids are grown. But again, being here in Willingborough was just the ideal place when I was introduced to Willingborough for me to raise my family. I love the feel of it, to what Terry and everyone else says, that community, that family, and it just seems such a beautiful place for an up-and-coming middle-class Black family.
Okay, thank you. Let me go with Jaslyn. Would you share the same?
Sure. I'm Jaslyn Sabri Wooden. I'm a professional artist and art teacher, and I'm a mother of two boys. And I was actually born and raised in Willingborough. And so it's just really been amazing to grow up over the years and go through my struggles and, and my accomplishments and do it all here, and attribute so much to growing up here. I left Willingborough and went to Atlanta, Georgia, to Clark Atlanta University, which is a historically Black college. So another Black experience. And in talking to people, once again, I just, and hearing stories from other Black people across the nation, there's just no place like Willingborough. When I came home, I lived in Mount Holly, which is predominantly white. And then I moved to Gloucester City to be closer to work, which is also predominantly white. And I just remember when I was living there, I remember that one of the first experiences that I noticed was that when I walked into the stores, I would just get stared at. No one would say good morning. No one would say, how are you? And even walking down the street, just staring. And I just remember feeling such a discomfort. And at that time we were renting and we were figuring out where we wanted to buy a home. And then I remember coming down to Willingborough for whatever reason, and I went to Rita's. And, everyone was just so welcoming, and I just felt so at home again. And I told my husband, I feel like with the way the world is right now, and just there's just no place like home. And I always wanted to be here. I always wanted to contribute to my community. And so we just thought no better place to buy our home. And so we nestled back in.
Welcome on back. All right, Mr. Dean, what about you?
I am retired. I'm a father, a grandfather, and a great-grandfather. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, and that particular place in Atlanta was very similar to Willingborough. It was single homes and all Black community, like most of Georgia was back then when I was growing up there in Georgia. But it was, of course, a lot of racism there in Georgia at that particular time. But that's pretty much what it was.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson.
Yes, my name is Gary Nelson. I grew up in Sicklerville, which is in part of South Jersey. I grew up in predominantly Black neighborhood, went to predominantly Black high school for 3 years. And in my final senior year, I transferred to Williamstown High School, which is actually, I want to say 70% white, 30% Black. So I got to experience both sides early on. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I work in the community, so my office is located here, my private practice where I see all types of clients, and I also run a counseling and youth development program inside of Willingborough High School.
Thank you. Samaj.
Yes, my name is Samaj Mccullough. I was actually born and raised in Trenton. I got a lot of my inspiration from my hometown of Trenton. I'm an artist. I do production. I write, engineer. I'm a passionate father, husband. But born and raised in Trenton, it was there was the obvious racism in the city. You know, it's hard to see because everybody gets treated the same, and it's hard to see the contrast between how someone like me is being treated and someone on the other side of the tracks is being treated, because we're all on the same side of the track. So it was all, you know, it was all the same. I moved here about 10 years ago, 11 years ago. So I found out my wife was pregnant, and I did not want to raise kids in Trenton. And so I have siblings that went to junior high school and went to high school here, and my father and stepmother moved here when I was in high school. So I was already familiar with the area. I would come here all the time. This was like my second home. So I was already familiar with the area. So right in my mind, you know, just thinking I want some property. I want a yard. I want front yard, backyard. I didn't want to have my kids playing on the asphalt or in the street. So the first thing that came to mind was Willingboro, because I was familiar with it. It kind of reminded me of Trenton because of, like someone said a little while ago, the community, and, you know, being able to hear kids playing, to ride and go to the parks and see kids jumping rope, playing basketball, to smell a barbecue outside. Like, you know, it just reminded me of being in Trenton. So, you know, when I thought of having a family, one of the first places was to come to Willingboro and set up shop in Willingboro. And here I am.
Awesome. Terry, before you go on with the next question, why are you here? How'd you get here?
Well, like many others, I started out elsewhere. I was actually raised in Mississippi, and I've lived in South Carolina and North Carolina at different times in my life. But for the most part, I was in North Jersey. And after getting married and having children, my children were actually still in their single digit years, with the exception of my oldest son, who was 11, when I finally decided that we had to leave. Even though it was home to us up in Jersey City, there was so much happening in our area that was violent. And I felt like it was no longer a place to raise children. Now, we had family here in Willingboro, so we were frequenting Willingboro quite often. On the weekends, this would kind of be our getaway to get out of the area. We would come here and just enjoy the open space. There were times I would be laying out in the grass on my aunt's lawn because of the fact that it was something different. So eventually we decided to make Willingboro our home. We moved here permanently in 2016, and we've been here since, and we've been loving it here. So with that being said, going into the question I'm going to ask everyone, we all talked about where we're from. But if you had to say what specifically led you to Willingboro, what would you say that was? I know for me, we were looking for peace. We wanted to find a place with peace. And what attracted me to Willingboro was the fact that there were so many people living peacefully who looked like me. And not only were these people who looked like me thriving, but there were people in power who looked like me in the community. So there were principals who looked like me. The mayor looked like me, the councilmen and councilwomen, the school board members. And so these are some of the things that attracted me to Willingboro. But what would you say attracted you here, and when did you actually move to Willingboro?
I'll start. I'll piggyback off of what you were saying. That's exactly what attracted me, was just a a different place, a more peaceful place than I was originally from and what was going on in my town at the time. Like I said, I moved here about 10 years ago when I found out my wife was pregnant, and I just because of what was going on, I didn't want to have to raise a child in the middle of that. I was fine. I'm grown. I'm not in the circle of things that was going on. So, a lot of things that was happening in my town didn't really hit close to home because my circle of friends weren't involved with that type of stuff. But, you can't help trying to raise a child, and a child passes all these things before he comes home and learns all these things before he even gets home. So I didn't want that. And to know that, like I said, this was a place that I was already familiar with. Like you said, I would go into the stores and a lot of the people look like me and a lot of the teachers look like me. And I had no idea how many of the folks in political positions looked like me until I moved here. I'm like, okay, that's, that was a plus. That was the icing on the cake for me. So it was cool to see that and to see, and I actually, I took up a part-time job at the community center. So just to see the people come in and interacting with the people, interacting with the political folks and the folks on the board and the local people, it just made me feel as though I made a good decision coming here and leaving the place that I was.
If I may jump in, I'm going to take a moment to step back and
absolutely jump in
my introduction because I kind of truncated it, thinking I didn't want to take up all the time, but there's a little bit more to me and what brought me here. As I said earlier, I migrated from Guyana in South America, but my first home was in Atlanta, Georgia. That was my first stop. Then moved here to New Jersey, but in another part of New Jersey. So I was in the Newark area. Newark, and my husband at the time, parents lived in Irvington. So I was between those two cities. And after the birth of our first child, my husband decided, to your point, Sanjay, didn't want to raise a family in Newark, New Jersey.
Samaj,
thank you so very much. I appreciate that. I apologize. Didn't want to raise a family there. So at that point, I think my son was maybe 4 months old when we relocated here. So that was in 1995 that I moved here and just fell in love with the place. When he told me, I knew nothing about it. When he said, hey, I heard of this town. It's beautiful, up and coming middle-class Black community. We love to move here. We came down, took a tour, and just the ambience, the flowers were beautiful flowers along the highways. It was just something to fall in love with. Like I said, from where I came from, that's the kind of atmosphere that I grew up with. So it was like an extension of home. So I felt real comfortable with that decision, never questioned it. We jumped right in. And the other thing was the opportunity to own our own home. Because I've always lived in my home, didn't know and like apartments. What I saw were apartments and didn't want to be part of that. So we had the opportunity to come, and first we rented so we could have an opportunity to look around and feel the different parks and sections, and felt we were comfortable to own a home at the price point we could afford at the time. And that's how we decided to make here home. So, and later on, added 2 more kids to my family. Born and raised in Willingborough. They all went through the Willingborough school system. I always endorse it. And everybody that would listen to me, the school system is fine. You can raise your kids there. You just have to put the work in and be involved. And that's what I did. Very much involved in the school system, was president of the PTA in every section of their lives. So just love Willingborough. Just love Willingborough.
All right, you went into the school system. We'll touch on that soon. Go ahead, Mr. Terry. Go ahead. Who else would like to respond to that question?
When I left Georgia, I went into the Air Force for 4 years, and then I moved to Philadelphia, and I moved into a row home in Monterey, West Monterey, and I could never get used to the row home because I grew up in a single home. And one thing that bothered me most was sitting in my bathroom and hear the toilet flush on the wall and flush. I could never get used to that. And so I said, I gotta take my kids to a single home like I grew up in. So I moved to Willingborough, and what attracted me first was the price, okay? I got a bigger house for much less money than I could have gotten in suburban Philadelphia or other parts of New Jersey. So it was price and the fact that it was becoming an all-Black community. I came here in 1982, and there were still more people of other races here then. And Willingboro has just become kind of, to me, like an ideal place to raise your family. So the price brought me here in the single homes and the desire to be around more of my people.
Yeah, I don't have much to say. My story is kind of like everybody else. I loved what when I moved up here, it was really familiar. So it was, I guess, the same people that built Willingboro were like the same people that the same group that built the area that I grew up in. So when I got here, I felt like I was already at home. So that, that kind of led to that decision.
Okay. So a lot has been said about integration. A lot has been said about segregation. This is not today in this conversation, but history, that segregation caused a collapse in racial pride and things of that nature. As a Black person, do you feel that living in a segregated community increases the quality of your life or decreases it? And I'll give you a suggestion. One person said, I don't want my child to grow up in an all Black community because the world is not all Black. Another person said, I want my child to grow up in an all Black community because there's more pride, in themselves. What do you say?
I've had these conversations so much with going to an HBCU and talking to family members who went to a PWI and things like that. And I mean, I see both sides, but what I think is that, like, for a lot of like majority white communities, no one ever questions their decision for wanting to live around white people. And so I don't think that as Black people, we should have to question that decision either. I feel like, yes, the world obviously is diverse. And I think that you'll have those experiences, and that there's nothing wrong with growing up with people who look like you and where you feel most safe or most comfortable. I mean, I have had some experiences that were culture shocking, like when I studied abroad and I went to Italy, but I quickly adjusted. And that experience was valuable for me, regardless of where I grew up. And I think it also, due to that cultural pride that I brought with me, I think that I also added a lot more to that experience, because it gives other people a different perspective. And so, I guess I wouldn't say that it either adds or takes away. I think it should be accepted as a norm. Like it should be okay for Black people to want to go to a Black college or to want to live in a Black community, and that we are still just as able to associate or socialize with anyone else, regardless of that experience, because we're all people and can all still relate on that level. So
I hear you.
I think that it was more important about the ability to buy and live where you want to buy, more so than integration. So it wasn't about, to me, moving to where white people are. It was just we as a people having the right, if we want to buy a house any place or go to any restaurant, to have that ability to do so, not necessarily just to be with white people in that sense. So I just think that it just meant equal rights for everybody to live and eat whatever they want, where they want to, where they can afford to.
So do you think that our community is strongest when we live among each other?
I think so. I think among each other, we will basically look out for each other and hopefully make the community stronger by people working together for the same cause. Sometimes we disagree, but it's okay to disagree if that once we decide on something, to work together to make something better. But as a people, I think we have to go back to the whole thing about the village. And Willingboro is kind of a village. It's also, it does have a lot of other people in it as well, too, other races. And we seem to work together well. And it seems like now a lot of people of other races are moving back into Willingboro as well now too. Because again, we go back to the price. It's still a wonderful place to get a wonderful house for a very good price.
All right. So you just said something, and I'd like to ask this question. Do you think that Willingboro works together? And do you think we work well together? Mr. Nelson?
No, I don't think that. We definitely don't work together. There's a lot of nepotism. There's a lot of backbiting. There's a lot of people in positions of power that don't have the knowledge or the education to effectively be in their positions. I do think that there is hope, because recently I've been seeing like people coming in and having a heart for community and having a heart for us unifying and trying to get things on the right page. But I've also noticed that the same people that are trying to get things and put things in the right place, they come up against such opposition for people that just want to make trouble. And I think the people that have the most investment inside of the community, the people that have the biggest heart for the community, are often the quietest people, because they're often the ones that just value putting their head down and working and, making an honest living. And it's always the people that don't have anything better to do, or that like to gossip and backbite and set people up. They tend to have the loudest voice and paint a bad picture for the entire community.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Nelson. Unfortunately, I've only been here for 11 years, but I've seen what he's speaking of. And I'm not even a real political person, but when it comes to my personal community and where I live, I show a lot more interest in that part of politics. So it was kind of obvious to see a lot of the nepotism and some of the things that are going on, and just kind of to go back. As far as living together amongst ourselves, I think it's more beneficial for us to live amongst ourselves. I think at some point we got disconnected from ourselves and learning how to work together. Having a community and dealing with politics in a community, dealing with economics in a community, kind of forces us to get back to what we need, where we need to be in terms of dealing with each other, in terms of interacting with each other properly in order to keep the community functioning properly. I think a lot of times we've had a lot of outside interjection and outside input, and it kind of throws things off. So, I think it's important for us to get back to where we're able to function and work well together in every aspect, economic, political, because that's what we need in order to keep the community functioning.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, I agree with what was said. And unfortunately, we have something that I've always called the feline mentality, as if we basically spray on an area and said, that's my area and no one should tread on it. So, but we have to learn to work together more for the common good. So hopefully that will come, and hopefully more young people will get involved and make this town really what it can be. It's a wonderful place now, but if there's anything such as an ideal town in USA, Willingboro can become that town.
Agreed.
I don't think it's going to happen, because honestly, for something like that to be able to happen, for the community to unify, I think that a group of us or a group of like-minded people need to agree to all move into the same community, because there's just too many varying like ideologies that are existing here, and Willingboro is a melting pot. Like, we get people from all over, people from all different types of circumstances, all different types of mindsets, and there's not one. I feel like, at least right now with the Black community, we don't have a foundational set of ideals that all of us pull from, that allow us, even if we have different personalities, to still work toward the same thing. So I don't see any hope for that. And
that's what I was speaking of when I was saying having too much outside input. A lot of times we have outside input and we lose focus as to where our goals and our targets should be. We lose a lot of our culture. We've lost a lot of our culture, and we've taken on a lot of culture, a lot of other folks' culture, and we apply that. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect, come from. We allow a lot of those things to come in, and we take on a lot of those things and apply it to our way of living, when we need to get back to our original way of living.
I agree, Samaj. There's a lot of outside influences taking place around us, including people who don't even live in Willingboro, have nothing to do with Willingboro, trying to control our narrative. But at the same time, we have to be real with the fact that there are a lot of people here in Willingboro who are just as cancerous.
Yep.
And it's like we're all here together, but we're not all working together.
Right.
And it's unfortunate because we have so many people that have come together, but only a few people actually see the big picture and want to work towards that. You have a lot of people who are trying to mess things up for us. And so when you look at the fist, a lot of times we use the fist to say that the fist is the heart. It's like a heart. Or sometimes we say the fist represents power. The fist also represents that one little handful of people who are trying to make a positive impact on this community. But those people are met with so much opposition, not just from the outside, but also from a lot of people who were maybe born and raised in Willingboro, or who have seen Willingboro's transition over the past few decades. And they speak a lot of negativity. And because of that, it's very difficult to create and actually realize progress.
Mm-hmm.
So then what is the selling point of Willingboro? We've identified some of the issues that I'm sure every city has, but particularly Willingboro. We've talked about the small group of people that can make the change. And in the chat, it says we can do this together. We got to keep the faith, and it's important to work together. That was shared in the chat. What then is the selling point of Willingboro?
I think, for example, our elementary schools are probably some of the best around. Our high schools, they're coming. There's quite a bit left to desire there, but they're coming. And we go back again to price. And also we go back to the fact that the location, we're 3 hours from DC, 30 minutes from Philly, hour and a half from New York, maybe 5 or 6 hours to Niagara Falls. So it's a fantastic place to live location-wise. And if you don't believe that, if you go to West Hampton and you saw these warehouses going up all over the place, that tells you that we are centrally located. So that's, and the fact that, again, back to price, and Willingboro does have some young people that want to make this town better. And we need more young people to get involved with this town.
Yeah,
I think the potential here is great. I mean, a lot of the issues that we're talking about are issues that we experience in other places too. It's not necessarily isolated to Willingboro. So the selling points here they still stand. It's still a great location. Now, as far as I understand, Willingboro might have one of the highest property taxes. So as far as the price is decent, but the property tax, and I don't know if that's because it's predominantly Black now. It seems after hearing some stories from some of the older folks that's been around here, there seem to have been a lot more selling points in the past. There was a pool in every section. There was this in every section, and I'm hearing this from the older folks, and I wonder if that's because now it's predominantly Black that a lot of the funding to Willingboro has kind of been dispersed in other places or allocated to other places.
That could definitely be part of the reason. I do also realize that Willingboro does not have as many children now as it used to. And so because of that, some schools have closed down, and, a town is only as strong as its school system. That's where most of our taxes go. And so our school system just happens to be, if I had to throw my opinion in there, it's struggling and it's lacking in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I'm experiencing that.
Mm-hmm.
I have 3 kids in elementary.
Right, and I have 4. I have 4 children in the public school system here, actually 3. And it's definitely, there's a problem there. And I think that plays a big role in why a lot of families, we got to understand that Willingboro has always been a family-oriented place. But now we have a lot of people who are single, or couples that don't have children. It doesn't seem to be attracting families like it used to, and mostly because our school rating is not that great. And so when a family is considering moving to any place and they have school-age children, one of the first things they do is look up the school system. Right now, when people look up the school system in Willingboro, they do not like what they see, and it deters them.
Yeah, I think the rating is like a C or something. I mean, honestly,
Right.
as much as I was attracted to Willingboro, the one thing that has me possibly leaving is the school system. I have 3 children, and and I've been dealing with and I'm very active in the school. I interact. I'm volunteering for things. I'm on PTA, and it seems. I mean, just as Daphne said, you have to really be involved. I mean, there's really no lacking, and it's kind of a lot of times an extra job trying to keep on top of the faculty and trying to keep on top of the schools and the board and following up with things. My son is on a spectrum for autism. He's low on a spectrum, and although he's in a regular class, in an inclusion class, and he doesn't necessarily need as much attention as someone else that might be a little higher, it still seems as though I have to be on him all the time just to get what we need for our son to be productive in school. I mean, we haven't even gotten, he's in the 5th grade for the last several years, haven't gotten what has been promised or what we've written a plan for in his IEP. We haven't even been able to get it. And now we're up for another meeting for next year, and we're like, we don't want to talk because we haven't even gotten the support that we needed this year for. So I mean, honestly, the one thing that's been deterring me, it's really just been the school system, but I see the potential there, and I wonder if the lack of resources is because of our taxes and money being allocated to different places. Like I said, because Willingboro is now majority Black. I don't, from what I hear in the past, the folks that grew up here and went to the school system, this wasn't an issue in the past.
Mhm.
I applaud you, and I appreciate you for your support. Everything that you do when it comes to your children, in the school system. Shout out to the superintendent, to the board members, and to all the parents who are actually concerned and are actually doing what they can to make things happen. Like I said, that fist, they're only a handful, but I believe that part of the reason why there's such a struggle is because there is not enough support, especially when it comes to the parents. I'm not saying all parents. There are quite a few parents who are involved. But when it comes to the community as a whole, we cannot accomplish anything unless we do it together. And right now, in some areas, especially when it comes to the support for our school system, when it comes to the support for our elected officials, it's just not, it's not there. We're lacking because there's no support.
Miss Daphne, you were going to say something?
Yeah, that's very true. Everything that we share, because that was one of the selling points for us to move here with young kids and planning to raise a family, was a school system. When we came, every park had a school. There's one right, the stone's throw from me around the corner. Every park had a swimming pool, so the kids could have stayed in their park and still have fun during the summertime. Then I slowly saw that changing, and the schools closing. That same school where my youngest started closed, so we had to send him to another school, another park. So it became a little more challenging, and that's where I felt I need to get involved and step in and do the best I can in terms of ensuring that the kids would have what they need in getting their education. Another point in parents, some parents, not all, not being supportive. Again, advocating for your child, being there. And once you're present and you're staying engaged, you actually force them to give you what you're paying for with your property taxes in providing that education and services for your children. I had my son on that same IEP, and I was at the meetings all the time, demanding what was required and what I should be receiving. I just stayed on top of them all the time. It is a second job, but as parents, you want the best for your children. So you would invest that time with them, being involved in the PTA, vice president in the elementary school, in the high school, vice president. And to have parents come out to the PTA meetings, it was the biggest struggle. And we couldn't understand, this is for your children. We're fighting on your behalf for your children. We try to lure them with dinners and foods, and sometimes we'll get a crowd because we advertise we're feeding people. Food always brings people together. And the moment we wouldn't do that, then the numbers would drop off. But that is something that we have to focus on and try to get everybody back in the same space with the same mindset and the focus to help foster that great community that we had initially and bring it back together. And I think we can. Gary, I wouldn't give up hope. I wouldn't say it's not possible. It is. I'm very optimistic. And people like ourselves here, just simply what we're doing now, that's a good step in the right direction. And if we can go out, each one of us go out and just spread the word and try to encourage others and the like-minded people with the ideas to make things happen, make things work again, we can make that difference.
When I first came to Willingboro, I came in the 5th grade, and I noticed the landscape, the trees, the streets were well maintained. I noticed the schools, the pools, everything. And so we shared a lot about schools. But when you look at suburban life, a lot of people look at the schools being, better schools. They look at the streets being cleaner. They look at life, less crime. Do you agree or disagree that that's part of Willingboro? Let's start with outside. Let's start with the grass and the maintenance of lawns and the streets. Are they clean? Would you say they're cleaner than the city? What do you have to say about it?
I can jump in. I feel like Willingboro is like in a unique position where we are a suburb, and so in some ways we're cleaner, right? We still have nice trees and divisions in the roads. But I feel like the Black aspect of it, like with that, sometimes there aren't as many resources that we receive, and it puts us in a position of limbo almost, where we have a lot of the same needs, maybe not to the same scale, but we have a lot of the same needs as our urban counterparts. But being that we are classified as a suburb, a lot of times we can't access those same resources. And so I've just been thinking lately, like, how can we either create those resources or, access those resources so that we do have the funding to continue to maintain our streets and our schools.
What resources are you, what resources specifically?
I'm thinking of like government funding and like things like that.
I'm sorry just to cut you off, but this was kind of like what I was mentioning before. Where did the resources go? Because those, like now there's cracks in the streets and there's grass growing out those cracks, but that, but the roads still were worn out back in the day, and I'm sure cracks still happen and grass still grew, but they fixed that. So, where and I understand that what you're talking about in terms of being in an inner city or in a city that might get more funding a lot of times because they're businesses and a lot more wear and tear in the city. But, these, the basketball courts 20, 30 years ago didn't have grass growing out of them, but now they do. Where the funding was there before, and where's the funding now? Like you said, where are the resources? If we're still a town that's being maintained, where are the resources? And we're still paying taxes, and the property taxes is one of the most in New Jersey. Where is that funding going to?
Jasmine, thank you, Samaj. Jasmine, did you have anything else to add to that?
No, I think I'm saying the same thing. It's like, where are those resources?
Right.
Because it just seems like even with me growing up, there's, I'm, like a millennial, I guess I would be called. And even I've seen it decline over the years, just in like my past 30 something years. And so I look at that and I just wonder, and then like being a teacher myself and, teaching in other communities, I'm just looking around and I'm like, there's disparity here, like what's going on, and where are our resources to be able to, beautify our streets and our schools and, make sure we have smart boards and COVID partitions. So just, there are a lot of things that I've seen and it just makes me wonder. I don't have the answers, I guess, but I just wonder like where those resources are. And if we don't have access to them, how can we create our own resources?
So my question is, the funds that we do have, how are they being managed? Because to my knowledge, like I'm just starting to get into like the political realm. So I'm trying to understand the role of the township manager and, who's responsible for making sure all these things are in place. Is like, to my knowledge, like we've had some past township managers that have just misused funds, which is why you can go to the Kennedy Center and people are making six figures over there and not doing anything. Like, we need a big reset. A lot of people need to get fired so that we can reallocate some of this money. And even the new township manager that's in place, if there are people that have been like kind of just living it up and reaping all the benefits of Willingborough, like pretty much robbing us. They fight. Those are the loudest voices. They're the ones that go against all the change, all the things that will put us back in the right direction, all the things that would get us set back up correctly financially, because it would hurt them. So, that's why I've become really pessimistic about all of this. And, I really do believe that all of the people that really have the heart for the community, we need to find a different way. I know everybody talks about speaking up and doing that, but we actually need some type of organization to be able to attack these issues head on.
I saw Mr. Dean looking like, oh no, what do you want to say?
No. Everything is pretty much right on. The bottom line is that we have to have people involved in the political system, more people to come out and vote during the elections. And if we don't do that, then everything stays the same. And I think there's enough young people now that are moving into Willingboro that has the mindset to make this town what it can be, to do that. But it starts at the ballot box. New Jersey as a whole has a big problem with people leaving, primarily because of small-time politics. Now, New Jersey, for example, has more school districts than Pennsylvania, as small as New Jersey is. Everybody has their own territory. So, but we have to come together and function as one somehow. But there's an old politician called Adam Clayton Power. This is say, keep the faith, don't give up. This is our town, and we're going to make it what it should be.
Right.
We have a message in the chat from Adrian, and she said, and I lost it. She said something about the young people are getting bored and unrecognized, and they need some place to showcase their talents and their skills. And I think it's important because the young people are the future. And so do they grow up in Willingboro and then decide, you know what, when we graduate, we're getting out of here? What is there to bring them back? So that moves to my next question about entertainment and recreation. And these are two things that residents might leave home for. People travel to Philadelphia for a show or New York or something like that. What then can we do in Willingboro to make people want to come here? How do we make this entertainment destination?
Yeah, I was going to say, I think one of the things that could be done, which it seems as though they kind of started that effort, was to revamp the Kennedy Center. They were trying to redo the auditorium, and they're kind of halfway there. They gutted it out a little bit, but I thought that was a great idea. We have that place there that can generate some funds, that can also provide a place of entertainment for different events. Otherwise, Willingboro is pretty small, and there aren't many big places where you can have an event at, and in order to experience a certain size event, then you pretty much have to go outside. But I think that was redoing JFK, redoing the banquet hall, giving that a place for people to rent out and have events, and then also the auditorium. I thought that was a good effort. I'm not sure where they are with the completion of that.
There's a lot of great things that go on the weekends, but people don't know about it. Like I hear there's an amazing comedy club night. I think it's once a month. And if you pass the Kennedy Center, it's packed.
Right.
So people know about it, but how are they finding out about it? And how do others get the word? What else would you say could bring interest? Because there's so many different people here. You've got so many cultures. You know what I mean? A multicultural international day would be amazing. But what else do you think would bring people to Willingboro?
They're using Mill Creek Park. Right. Marketing. Yeah. I work at Kennedy Center, and a lot of times I don't know the events that are going on here until the actual day that event is going on. So, and I live around the corner within walking distance. So I work there, I live within walking distance, and I still don't hear about a lot of things that are going on. So yeah, promotions and getting things out.
That's exactly why a lot of people need to get fired. So that way people can get put in place that have a heart for the work, that will market things correctly, that will be willing to cooperate with other people. There's so many times we tried to have some type of event at the Kennedy Center just to get told no. And the only way you can do something is if you know somebody in the inside that's willing to like make some things happen for you. So no, fire most of them.
Samaj is pointing at himself. I think he's saying everybody contact Samaj.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of antiquated ideas in Willingboro. That's why I think a lot of things don't get pushed forward. There's an older way of thinking here, and a lot of things don't get moved because they're newer ideas and might be a little different than what folks here are used to doing.
That's what I was gonna say. I think the more like younger people get involved, who have the ability to or the skill to operate, the Instagrams and the Facebooks and other ways of advertising things that are more, I guess, modern and applicable to today and to the younger people, since that's who we're talking about. I think that's the shift that also needs to be made. I think that, as far as the age demographics in a lot of our offices, I don't see many young people who are actually doing the footwork. And so it could be a feeling of like overwhelmed. But I think that, like, I put that too with advertising. I think that that's the major thing. Even growing up here, a lot of the people I went to school with had no idea of the different types of, organizations and activities that they could be a part of outside of sports. And so I don't think that we're not doing the things. I just think that if you want to be active in your community, you have to seek it out right now. And as we work also to up our advertising.
I think the young people too, though, the young people are experiencing the same thing, like the same things we're talking about with being turned away and like in pockets of people, like, shutting things down. Young people are experiencing the same exact thing inside the high school. They feel like they are living inside of a prison. They feel like the structure is punitive, that the things that I've seen some of the students have such a heart for their school, even though the school has little to offer. They try their best to make things exciting, to make things fun. And they will almost be in tears talking about being turned away, things that they want to do not being implemented, being told no at every corner. Like, that's the cult. Like, we talk about culture. That's the culture that we're instilling in this community, as a culture of no. And to see that happening at the high school level, I'm not surprised why they're leaving. I'm not surprised why they're not involved in things that are going on in the community, even when they find out about it. Like, we need some fundamental shifts in thinking.
Right.
I definitely agree. A lot of the young people, it's not that they're not speaking up, because they do speak up. The young people, every opportunity that they get, they will talk about the things that they're dealing with. They'll talk about the struggles that they have, but I feel like they're being listened to, but they're not being heard. Right. And so something needs to change in that area. I'm going to shift the conversation just a little bit. We're going to, yes.
I'm sorry. Adrian put something in it, just marked exactly what you said.
Okay.
She wrote in the chat that many young people are chasing stability. A lot of the youth are yearning for guidance. We're here, but we are trying to make it work, almost like an SOS. We are used to being silenced and following the leaders until we are able to share our voice. And so she's 24 years old, born and raised in Willingborough. And so she definitely knows what she's speaking about. She has her own show on Wednesdays, What's Up Wednesdays. I mean, she's doing it. And so I didn't want to cut you off, but I wanted to make sure that
it's okay.
That's the voice right there,
Right. Yes. And shout out to What's Up Wednesday. Thank you for joining. And it's true. It's true. They're crying out. It's the SOS. They're calling out for help. And like I said, it's not that they're not being listened to. We hear them, but they're not actually being heard, because we're not adhering to what they're saying, and we're not actually pushing for the change that they need. They are our hope for tomorrow. If we want to do anything that involves our future, we need to empower the younger generation. And if we are not doing that, then we are failing ourselves. We are failing our entire culture as a whole. So there has to be something new that we need to do in order to make these things happen. So again, I'm going to shift, and we're going to talk a little bit about racism, about prejudice. Since being here and living amongst your own, so to speak, being around each other, we're like family. And I was going to say earlier that one of the things that makes it so comfortable to live amongst other African Americans is, like, when you walk into a place and you see other people who are like you automatically feel connected. You automatically feel empowered, because we're there, we're kinfolk. We may not even know each other, but we just automatically feel that connection. Have you felt or experienced less racism or prejudice since living in Willingborough?
Growing up here, I would say you do experience racism. And I would say that, like, as far as in the schools, you know, unfortunately, we're not impermeable. And there have been, you know, teachers from other races who, you know, don't believe in us or our kids today. But one thing that I like about Willingboro is that I feel like when you speak up, you are heard. And I feel like that's the main difference. I don't think that there won't be times where you experience it. There are white people living here, you know, but when you speak up about it, I feel like you have more support because you have your community standing behind you. That's all I want to say about that.
I mean, living in Willingboro now for the last 11 years, coming from Trenton, I personally, I think I experienced a little less. And it's not more of racism, it's more, I guess, and it is, but it's also classism. You know, it seemed like coming from Trenton or living in Trenton, I was being looked down upon. Whereas here, it's like, you know, more than likely people here own their homes. So more than likely I'm a homeowner. More than likely I make a certain amount because I live in Willingboro. So it was more of a classism thing. You know, I don't seem to feel as though folks here are looking down on me as I did when I was living in the inner city.
Yeah, I can't say I've experienced that. I'm sure it exists. Right where I live, on one side I have Caucasian lady, on the other side African American, and we all get along. It's an elderly lady, so I help her out. She calls on me for assistance, and I just feel like we're all one here. So I haven't personally experienced any overt racism. Like I said, I'm sure it exists, but I'm just not feeling it or haven't felt it that way. In the school system, again, I live vicariously through my kids because they all went through the school system here, but I ensured I stayed with every teacher that they were involved with to make sure they got what they want. Any complaints or anything I heard from them, I made sure I was present there to address it and to resolve it, to make sure that they got what they want. Teachers know that I was not going to sit by idly. I'm here to represent my child or other children, because being part of the PTA, I did that to give a voice for those who didn't have one. So I feel hope and change can come about here. And just again, step back 1 minute in our previous topic, businesses. I think we need to attract more businesses back to the community. Just the movement of that ShopRite from our community here, I think that had a very devastating effect on our community in terms of the access to a supermarket, which was in walking distance to a lot of people here. Now we have to go across town to find something. And I don't see them catering as much as when they were in our town here. So things like that. But I can see some development. I see right on Route 130, there's new buildings going up. I'm not sure if it's construction for businesses or homes. I'm not quite sure. But I see some revitalization taking place. So I have hope, Gary.
Going back to Gary.
There's hope. We're gonna bring it back.
I have to add to that that even though yes we did lose ShopRite, however in the Kennedy Plaza we do have a supermarket now. It's a very good supermarket, and I definitely would like to invite you to come by and visit. You know,
again, the advertisement.
Yes, they're clean. They're very clean.
Yep. They're very clean. It's a beautiful place, and like you said, the advertisement. Yes. I guess it would be up to the owners of that market to advertise, but we do have to keep in mind that Willingboro does have a lot of great businesses, great restaurants, great mom and pop shops that are in. We have so many plazas in Willingboro. Right. We just have to go out and visit those places and see what's there. And I do agree that we need better advertising in our town, because if more people would see that Willingboro has more to offer than meets the eye, I think that we would have a lot more pride in where we live.
I think some sort of listing, local business listing, Black local business listing, if we can get that for local folks, because I constantly, and I love patronizing my people, but it's a search trying to find where they are, and we don't necessarily advertise that because we don't want to get a bad mark on us. So, and we want to get the other people to also patronize us. So we don't. So a lot of times it's hard to even tell what's a Black business or, you know, a local community business. So a listing, that'd be so cool if everyone had a listing of the businesses in the town.
I think that's great. Adrian, we can also do commercials for these businesses. I want to read what RR states. Unfortunately, there is little to no kinship. And when we see our kind, it is almost the same, if not worse, as another race due to the way we treat each other. And so much emphasis is on the youth and empowering them. But where is the accountability and level of upkeeping of a standard with that? It's not necessarily about different cultures, but a lack of basic general respect and common sense. And so another thing they said, as for things to do, we need to stop focusing so much on entertainment and do more to educate our youth and children and have native places and events that are the normal and not one-time events. Adrian says we have the resource to produce media for the community, so the narrative is in our hands. It's coming. So having said that and listening to what everyone has contributed so far, our community that's largely Black, we might not experience as much racism, but do you think we experience more classism, more cronyism than racism in Willingborough?
I personally don't see, I don't know where everyone is in terms of classism. I know we all live in Willingborough. I don't know how much you make. I don't know what your house look like, you know? So like, as far as I'm concerned, we're all peers. I haven't experienced that, other than I will say, being in contact with some of the folks on the board that deal with politics. They can sometimes walk around with their nose a little high, but other than that, you know, and they can walk around with an attitude of like, you don't know me. I know I'm not from Willingborough. I wasn't born and raised in Willingborough. I don't know you. I don't know the people that everyone whose faces that sit in a political position. I don't know you. So, you know, I think in that aspect, that classism, but overall, I don't experience that in Willingborough.
So the definition of cronism, the appointment of friends and associates to positions of authority without proper regards to qualification. Does it sound like
politics?
Sounds like JFK Center.
Yeah, in politics, definitely. And when I say politics, I'm including municipal JFK. To me, that's like all part of, you know, the board of people that run Willingborough. Yeah, there definitely is cronyism in those positions. But amongst the people, I don't find that at all. Or classism, I don't get any of that amongst the people.
Okay. Anyone else want to contribute to that, Mr. Nelson? I think you do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely see it. There's a lot of subgrouping going on. You know, I think that to a certain extent it happens naturally. We do have board members that right. tend to kind of break off and subgroup council people that decide that have little fan bases that gas their heads up and make them feel like they're the president. And so
agreed.
Every board meeting, every council meeting is a live show. It's what's the next crazy thing that's going to be said or introduced or argued about. So that happens a lot. I wish there was something that could be done about that. And I really dislike, and I don't know if this is something that's specific to our people, but it always seems to be that when people get put into a position of power or have a perceived sense of power, they just go nuts with it and use instead of thinking first to serve with it, they think to dictate, and it's so counterproductive.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was hoping was, and it is a question in my head when we were talking about where do these funds go? Where are these resources at? You know, I hate to think that our people in these positions and that's where the resources are going, and that they're trying to find ways to do whatever benefits them or whoever's in their circle of people. I mean, I hate to think that, but where has, you know, the taxes are still the taxes. They haven't gone down. So the money is being sent somewhere and someone is doing something with that money. So
I think that,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mm-hmm. I think that for me growing up here, I've witnessed as a child, I would say more racism than classism and cronyism. However, I do see what's happening as an adult in terms of cronyism and returning here. but I don't think it's an issue that's isolated to Willingboro. I think it's from Willingboro to the White House, where you know, you bring your buddies aboard. However, I think it goes back to a point that Mr. Dean made earlier, that change is made at the ballot box. So because people are going to try to buddy in their friends or grandfather in people who may not have the experience level to do the job. And I think that it's really up to the community to be more involved and more aware, and research these people who are running and things like that, so that we are having somewhat of a final say on who's leading us.
Willingboro politics is a bit different, and I realized that moving here, that, you know, the folks that you think are voted in by the people here are not necessarily voted in by the people, and that kind of blew my mind, knowing that different dynamic here.
Yeah, we had a great mayor, and I recently found out the mayor actually has no power. So I was hopeful for change in something that the mayor didn't have power to make changes in. So we have a weird structure, you know, political structure here.
And I think that's one of the things that deter a lot of times are people from being involved in politics. There's a lot of politics involved in it, and, you know, like, who wants to decipher, who wants to try to, you know, sift through all the BS? A lot of times it's just like, just give me what it is straight up, all this extra politics. Do I vote you in? Do I not vote you in? Who, like, you know, and then a lot of times people just throw up their hands and like, you know what, I can't do it. I'm going to live my life. I'm going, you know, so we don't get involved in that.
I definitely recommend for everyone who can to read up on what's known as the Faulkner Act. That is how Willingboro's government is ran. If you read up on the Faulkner Act, you'll understand why it is so important. Jaslyn actually made my point earlier, something that Mr. Dean said, that this is why it's important to vote. This is why it's important to vote in well-vetted people who actually have a heart for change in Willingboro and who are willing to put in the work for the people to make change. Our voter turnout is nowhere near, it hasn't been anywhere near what it should be in the past years. Since I've been here, I've seen it. Every time I go to vote, the place is almost empty when I go in. And that needs to change. For everyone who has anything to say about Willingboro when it comes to making changes in the township and wanting better for the township, you have to get to that ballot box. That is your voice, not the Zooms, not the Facebook posts. If you want to be heard, get to that box.
So this discussion, Black in Willingboro, Life and Liberty, we have touched on politics a lot, the school board, we've touched on outside what needs to be changed. What are we missing? And before, this will be before the last question, what are we missing in this discussion? Anything that we should be talking about? Because there's pride in being Black in Willingboro. I mean, there's pride, period, in Willingboro, right? But we're carrying this. So is there anything we're missing?
Probably who we're missing. Probably the folks that should be accountable for some of the things that we're saying probably should be on this call and hearing some folks that live here and that are passionate about being involved where they live and are passionate about where their family is growing up and where they're coming up. Those people should be, and I don't know how often they're involved in community discussions and whatnot. I see their faces sometimes. But in terms of being involved in community discussions, I'm not sure how often that happens. And that's what's missing them.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Dean.
I think what's missing is simple. Where do we go from here? We have to plot a course and start going there. That's why I keep emphasizing we got to get the young people involved, 18, especially 18 to 40. And we have to figure out, where do we go? And we got a lot of places to go, and we can get there working together. But until we can get some unity at the ballot box and in politics and get rid of the feline mentality, we're going to stay where we are. But I think Willingboro will overcome all of that with the young people that are getting involved today, like you guys there. You're part of the solution. Back in the day, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So pick which one, the solution or part of the problem. So we have to pick that as a whole.
Good.
I think one bright spot that at least I've seen in this community is the police. Everywhere I've been, I've had tend to have bad interactions, and whether it's being profiled or just abuse of authority and things like that. Willingboro, this is the most I've ever seen police officers that like care about the community, that like will drive past you and say hello. Like that was kind of a new thing for me. So I do want to say that, like, I do appreciate them. They've been on point for the most part, and at least from what I've seen.
I agree. Shout out to Willingboro PD.
And Dr. Dean, I think, and you have a great platform in your organization for us to start mobilizing. To Ms. Kendine's point, we need to start mobilizing, have our voice heard, galvanize the young folks to give them that hope and encouragement, and know that we're here for them, support them, we hear them, and we're here to help them to get to where we need to bring about that change.
Okay.
Yeah.
And of course,
I think more community events will help that kind of put together that cohesiveness. I think using the resources we have, the park, the Kennedy Center, having events and inviting the young folks out, and just like someone said, not just entertainment but education, but I think it has to be presented as entertainment so that folks can be willing to come out and learn something.
Okay. RR says, again, the young people, when it comes to voting, where are they? As well as all the properties being bought low and rented for high. And unfortunately, the young people will not be our future until we, as the older generation, do more to give a true foundation despite our differences. Adrian says, young people are trying to figure it out. We're so used to our parents doing it for us that we're stuck in that mold. But in the future, we're here to break the mold. RR says, how can they lead if we don't show the example? So the last question, and we want to say thank you for joining in this discussion. Again, I feel like we just scratched the surface and there's so much to talk about. The theme again was Black in Willingboro, life and liberty. Terry, the last question, take it away.
Before I do the question, I'm just going to say there's got to be a part 2 to this. This conversation has to continue. What does it mean to be Black in Willingboro? If you had to put in your own words your definition of being Black in Willingboro, what would you say?
Pride.
Oh, that was the word that I was exactly going to use.
It's pride
in your community, pride in family,
people,
pride in your area. It's pride.
Mm-hmm.
Mr.
I don't
Dean.
think I would have a word. Definitely hope for the youth. Oh, I'm sorry. Was that? Am I over?
No, go ahead. You said hope for the youth.
Yeah, they have been like, I really believe in our youth, and I've seen firsthand like brilliant young people that have the heart, and like they motivate me. So I am hopeful for our future in them.
That's what makes us us.
Yes. So Gary, let's do something about that. Don't let that slip away.
Oh,
Let's come together and do something.
I gave up on the adults. I focus solely on the young people now.
Gary's just being real.
No,
I can vouch for Gary. He does a lot for the youth in our community.
Gary's just being real. I can tell.
Yeah, definitely. And I just want to also invite everyone, whether you have a child in a district or not, please join in on the school board meetings. See what's going on. Show support. Joining on the township council meetings, see what's going on, show support. If everyone in the community, we have way too many people in this community to have so many low numbers when these meetings take place. But when it's time to call out the atrocities that are going on, it seems like everyone wants to jump on that bandwagon. But when we're looking for hands on deck, we can only find that fist.
So where can people get that information to where these events are scheduled? How can they find out a calendar or something?
On the township's website, and that's where you can get the information about the township council meetings. And on the school board's website, you can get the information about the school board meetings. And so what we'll do is when we post this, we can actually put those links in the description.
Absolutely.
Mr. Dean,
constantly have to put these things out. Sorry, Dr. Dean.
Sorry about that. One word or a sentence. What does it mean to be Black in Willingboro? I want to take us back there.
Well, I said hope before, and but one thing, I would like to have a week in Willingboro to celebrate teens. Our teens in Willingboro, a week of celebration for teens.
Okay.
Great
And get some
idea.
teams together and let them plan it, you know?
Nice. Okay. Anyone else? What does it mean to be Black in Willingboro?
I think it means to be free. I think, you know, there's a lot of things by being Black in Willingboro that you just don't feel like you have to worry so much about. And I feel like there's a certain level of freedom that comes with that. Like just the freedom to envision your future, the freedom to be a part of real change and contributing to your community. I feel like we're small enough and we're mighty enough to make some real impact, and that this is a good place to do it.
Good. Very good. Terry, anything else?
Just really enjoyed the dialogue this evening, and I'm looking forward to continuing this conversation. And I appreciate everyone for joining on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, subscribe, whyy.org for more conversation. And I think that this conversation will continue, but I think the action behind it will be much greater. You've got Adrian in the platform, and whomever RR is, who said hopeful for the future, but frustrated in the present. May that frustration allow you to push for the change in the future, because we really need that to happen. We've got young people here, but we're here too. So it's not over for us. So let's make it happen. So thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you guys for putting this together.
Really
Appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Don't forget to subscribe to Borough TV as well. You can find us on social media at BoroTV US and on the web at www.borotv.us.
All right. Have a great night, everyone.
Peace.
Peace. Good night.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.